Have you ever thought to yourself, especially recently, there's just so much falsehood in the world? So many lies, smears, evil is being supported, it's growing. And you think the world is heading in a very concerning direction. Well, I want to tell you a story that I hope will maybe give you a bit of hope and a bit of optimism and confidence that that's not the case. In the mid 90s, a Jewish advertising executive wondered, what if the New York Times, the paper of record, printed the Shabbat candle lighting time each week? Shabbat is the Jewish Sabbath. It begins on a Friday night, and Jewish women will light candles to usher it in. It's a Torah commandment, a Jewish commandment. And he thought, imagine the Jewish awareness and pride that might result from such a prominent mention of Shabbat each week. He contacted a Jewish philanthropist and sold him on the idea. It cost nearly $2,000 a week, but he agreed to fund it. And for the next 5 years, every Friday, Jews around the world would see, quote, Jewish women, Shabbat candle lighting time this Friday is, and whatever the time was. Eventually, the philanthropist had to reduce the number of projects he'd been funding, and so in June 1999, the little Shabbat candle lighting notice made its last appearance in the New York Times. At least, that's what people thought. On January the 1st, 2000, the New York Times ran a Millennium edition, commemorating the paper's 100th anniversary. It was a special issue that featured 3 front pages. One contained the news from January the 1st, 1900. The second contained the actual news of the day, January the 1st, 2000. And the third front page featured projected headlines of January the 1st, 2100. It included such stories as a welcome to the 51st state, Cuba, and a debate over the issue of whether robots should be allowed to vote, and so on. And in addition to the creative articles, there was one extra piece. Down on the bottom of the year 2100, I want to get it up as well so you can see this. At the very bottom, in the bottom left, was the candle lighting time in New York for January the 1st, 2100. And by the way, you can calculate that. You can calculate what it would be 100 years from now. No one asked for it. No one paid for it. It was just put in by the Times. The production manager of the New York Times, an Irish Catholic, was asked about this curious entry. His answer speaks to the eternity of the Jewish people and to the power of Jewish ritual. He said, "We don't know what will happen in the year 2100. It is impossible to predict the future. But one thing you can be certain, that in the year 2100, Jewish women will be lighting Shabbat candles." It's a beautiful story, and the reason why I'm mentioning it is twofold. The first one is, at a very basic level, I say basic, it's a miracle really, but to remind us that the Jewish people were, are, and will be. They are as eternal as eternity itself, as Leo Tolstoy, the famous Russian writer, once said. The Jews are the embodiment of eternity. And so whatever our tribulations, both in the past, the present, or the future, we know that we come through. And not only that, continue to dramatically transform the world's values and bring more life to this world. And so however hard things may seem, we've been here before. And the Jewish people, quite frankly, by being God's chosen people, chosen to bring his light, his voice into the world, they transcend the laws of nature and of history. So that's the first thing to note. And it's said often, but it's important we remind ourselves of this. But there's actually a second point, and I think an even more powerful point, which is this. What we learn from that article, saying that in the future, Jewish people, Jewish women will light candles, we know of that. When we think about the future, when we think about how things look now, when we think about what's going to be in the future, you might look at things right now and think there's going to be even more lies, society is going to disintegrate, there's going to be more bloodshed and war and hatred and violence, and the way the world is going, it looks like lies will prevail, falsehood will prevail, evil will prevail. The message of this article is that the Jewish people know that the future is the truth. That's the future. So when you look at the world and you think, gosh, everything's disintegrating and lies are probably going to prevail, the Jewish conviction has been that actually what is inevitable is not disintegration, not falsehood, not tyranny, but truth. And it seems counterintuitive, and that's not what you would think by looking at the state of the world necessarily. But that has been the Jewish people's conviction. Our golden age, the Jewish people's golden age, unlike other nations and empires, has always been in the future. Because we know, just as it's counterintuitive that the Jewish people have survived despite being few in number, scattered all over the world and intensely persecuted, even though that's counterintuitive, we know we had a promise that we would be eternal and that God would bring us through. And it's happened, and now we know it. But so too, we've had a promise that we will enter a time in which truth pervades the entire world. The Messianic era. That's what we know is inevitable. And that's why, at our deepest level, we dance and sing, Am Yisrael Chai, the Jewish people live, and Od Avinu Chai, our Father in heaven lives. That's why we still dance. That's why we still say L'chaim. That's why we celebrate, because we know what the future has in store for us. Just because things look dark, you could have an army, an Egyptian army, chasing you on the shores of the sea, with the sea in front of you, the army behind you, and snakes and scorpions on either side. And it can look like it's all over. And then a miracle can happen and the sea can split. We know because of our tradition, because of what we've been told, because of our history, because of what we heard from our teacher, Moses, thousands of years ago, and from God himself at Mount Sinai, that the future will not be lies, tyranny, societal disintegration, and bloodshed. The future is the truth. That's what gives us the confidence to keep going. And that's why we should invest more energy in being a part of that inevitable journey and destination. Hi, thank you so much for watching. To watch another one, click here. To stay up to date with all our content, click here to subscribe. And if you're able to, you can help support JTV to grow and grow by clicking join below this video, where you can become a member and get perks including early access to videos and private live discussions with me. But most of all, you'll be partnering with us on our mission to change the world.